Truth is a blade that cuts far deeper than steel. It wounds not the flesh, but the mind. When you speak it plainly without softening its edge, you strip away the illusions people have spent years constructing. These illusions are not trivial decorations, they are the armor in which they move through life. They hide weakness behind confidence, failure behind excuses, selfishness behind virtue. To remove that armor, even with words, is to expose them to the cold reality they fear most, the truth of who they are without the mask. Most will tell you they value honesty, but what they truly value is the kind that flatters and reassures. They crave a truth that confirms their righteousness, their intelligence, their worth. This is not truth. It is comfort dressed in its clothing. The real truth, the kind that shows them the cracks in their image, is treated not as a gift, but as an attack. When you deliver it, you are not perceived as a friend or an ally. You are seen as a threat to the very foundation of their identity. People live in fragile worlds built on selective perception. They ignore what is inconvenient, avoid what is unpleasant, and dress their lives in narratives that make them feel in control. When you speak too plainly, you disrupt these worlds. You are the uninvited guest who throws open the shutters, letting in a light that reveals the dust, the decay, the flaws that have been carefully kept in shadow. They cannot unsee what you show them, and they cannot easily forgive you for showing it. The danger of truth is that it forces choice. Once someone hears it, they must either confront it or destroy its source. Confronting it demands humility and the willingness to change, qualities most possess in theory, but not in practice. Destroying the source is easier. It requires no internal struggle, no admission of fault, no risk of transformation. And so, the bearer of truth often becomes the enemy, not because they have done harm, but because they have removed the comfort of ignorance. Your realness, as it is often called, is not neutral. It is an act of rebellion against the silent agreement that governs social life. I will protect your illusions if you protect mine. Break that pact, and you place yourself outside the circle. Even if your words are accurate, even if your intentions are pure, you have crossed an invisible line. You have declared that you will not participate in the mutual deception that allows people to coexist without constant friction. Once marked as someone who speaks too plainly, you will find that people measure their words more carefully around you. They will hold back pieces of themselves, fearful that you might expose them without warning. They will speak of you as blunt, harsh, or lacking tact, not because these qualities truly define you, but because such labels allow them to frame you as the problem. It is easier to call you unkind than to admit they are afraid of being seen. The truth, when wielded without compromise, is a weapon people cannot defend against without sacrificing their illusions. It strikes at their pride, their security, and their sense of control. And so, in their eyes, it is not simply the truth. It is an act of war. You may never raise your voice. You may never insult or threaten. But the moment you reveal something they wish to hide, you have committed an unforgivable offense. You have shown them that their world is not as solid as they believed, and you have proven that you are willing to speak of it aloud. To be too real is to become a mirror that refuses to distort the image. You do not bend the light to flatter. You do not blur the edges to protect pride. And you do not decorate reality with soft illusions. You reflect things as they are, not as people wish them to be. In doing so, you become something dangerous, because most do not come to a mirror seeking the truth. They come seeking confirmation of the lie they already believe. Every person carries two selves, the self they present to the world and the self they keep hidden. The public self is polished and deliberate, crafted to inspire admiration, respect, or at least acceptance. The hidden self is where the insecurities live, where the compromises hide, where the selfish motives lurk beneath the mask of virtue. People will spend their entire lives ensuring the hidden self stays invisible. But when they encounter you, when they sense that you see past the performance, their comfort begins to erode. You do not need to speak to reveal this discomfort. Your eyes, your silence, your refusal to be fooled. These alone are enough to unsettle them. They can feel that you are not taken in by their practiced charm, that you have noticed the hesitation behind their confidence or the bitterness hidden in their smile. And though you have not said it aloud, they know you have seen something they would rather keep buried. The presence of someone who sees too clearly is a quiet accusation, and human nature does not forgive the ones who hold the mirror up too steadily. Most people want reflections, but they want them on their terms. They want the mirror that hides their flaws, that shows them not as they are, but as they aspire to be. They crave the illusion that they are stronger, wiser, or kinder than they truly are. This is why flattery is rewarded. It is the painted mirror, the beautiful lie. But you, in your authenticity, are the unpolished glass, the cold surface that shows the truth without adornment. In their eyes, you are not a mirror at all. You are an intruder in their carefully controlled self-image. It is not the reflection they fear. It is the vulnerability that comes with being seen. When you reveal, even silently, that you have noticed the cracks in their persona, you rob them of the control they have over how they are perceived. This loss of control is intolerable to many, for it threatens their power, their influence, and their ability to navigate the world on their own terms. And so, the instinctive response is not gratitude for your honesty, but hostility toward your presence. At first, this hostility is subtle. Conversations grow shorter, smiles become tighter, and they offer fewer glimpses of their personal thoughts. They may describe you to others as too intense or hard to read, framing your clarity as a flaw. Over time, they will distance themselves entirely, not because you have wronged them, but because you have shown them too much of themselves. Those who cannot bear the mirror will eventually seek to destroy it. Sometimes this destruction comes through discrediting you, painting you as untrustworthy, arrogant, or cold, so that others will turn away before you can reflect anything back to them. Sometimes it is done simply through absence, by cutting off contact until your reflection no longer threatens their illusion. In either case, the goal is the same: to remove from their life the one who shows them what they are. You are not hated for your flaws, for everyone has them. You are hated because you reveal theirs. And when the truth of who they are collides with the image they have built, the easiest way to restore balance is to eliminate the mirror altogether. Human society is held together by an invisible pact, an unspoken agreement that governs the way people speak, act, and react. It is not written in law, yet it is enforced more ruthlessly than any formal rule. The pact is simple. We will protect each other's illusions, and in return, we will receive protection for our own. This pact keeps the machinery of social life running smoothly. It allows people to navigate without constant conflict, to avoid open war over pride, ego, and status. But the moment you refuse to abide by it, you commit the gravest offense in the eyes of the collective. You break the game everyone else is playing. The game is subtle, but its moves are predictable. You flatter those in power, whether or not they deserve it. You remain silent when the truth would offend. You bend your words to avoid making others uncomfortable. You show agreement in public even when you disagree in private. These are not acts of honesty. They are acts of survival. Those who play the game well are rewarded with approval, opportunities, and a place within the circle. Those who refuse to play find themselves pushed to the edges, not because they lack skill or intelligence, but because they have rejected the unwritten code that keeps the group intact. When you are too real, you decline to take part in this exchange of illusions. You will not pretend to respect what you do not respect. You will not praise what is unworthy of praise. You will not nod in agreement just to avoid friction. In doing so, you place yourself outside the system of mutual protection, and the system responds to this as it would to any threat by neutralizing it. The irony is that you may not intend to threaten anyone, but your refusal to play exposes the truth that the rules are not unbreakable. And when people see that the rules can be broken, they begin to question why they obey them at all. To those invested in the game, your authenticity is dangerous because it undermines the structure they have built their lives upon. Your very existence shows that one can live without constant pretense, without bowing to false authority, without swallowing every truth for the sake of peace. This is not a lesson they want others to learn, because it weakens the web of control that keeps everyone in line. And so, you must be framed as reckless, arrogant, or socially incompetent, not because you truly are, but because this framing serves as a warning to others who might consider following your example. Even those who admire you privately will hesitate to be seen supporting you openly. The association is risky. If you are viewed as an outsider, those too close to you may be marked as outsiders themselves. This is how the collective maintains order, not only by punishing dissent directly, but by isolating the dissenter until they have no influence left. The refusal to play is treated like a contagion, one that must be contained before it spreads. For those in positions of authority, your rejection of the game is especially intolerable. Authority depends on the predictable obedience of those below. When you do not follow the rituals of deference, you remind others that respect can be withdrawn, that compliance is not inevitable. Even if your disobedience is subtle, even if it is only in the form of truth spoken without flattery, it carries the weight of rebellion. And rebellion, no matter how small, must be crushed before it inspires more. Yet for the individual who refuses the game, the cost is known from the start. You know that opportunities will be withheld, that alliances will dissolve, that the easy path will close to you. But you also know the alternative, a life spent bending, bowing, and lying to fit the moment, until the self you truly are is buried under the masks you wear. This is the trade most are willing to make. But once you have tasted the freedom of living without masks, you will not return to the prison of polite deceit. And so, you walk a narrower road, without the protection the game offers, knowing that every room you enter contains those who see you not as an equal, but as a disruption to be managed or removed. You carry the mark of someone who has broken the pact, and there are few marks society despises more. There is a peculiar trait in human nature. People rarely admit when they are envious. Envy is too ugly to confess openly, so it must be dressed in something more acceptable, something that allows the envious to strike without revealing the true source of their hostility. That disguise is morality. It gives them a mask of righteousness while they wage war against you for nothing more than your unwillingness to be bound by the same chains that hold them. When you live too real, when you speak and act without the careful calculations that keep others trapped, you become a walking reminder of their own limitations. You show them, without even trying, that fear can be overcome, that masks can be discarded, that a person can live according to their own rules rather than the rules imposed by the crowd. But instead of seeing you as inspiration, they feel an instinctive bitterness. Your freedom exposes their lack of courage, and rather than admit this weakness, they recast your freedom as vice. They will not say, "I envy you because you are free." They will say, "You are arrogant." They will not confess, "I wish I could do what you do without fear." they will say, "You are reckless." The words change, but the motive is the same: to bring you down to a level where your presence no longer threatens their sense of self. Morality becomes their weapon, but unlike envy, morality has the advantage of being socially rewarded. People who attack you under the banner of morality can find allies easily. After all, who wants to be seen defending someone labeled as selfish, cruel, or disrespectful? The most skillful of them will twist reality to make it appear as though their judgment of you is not only justified but necessary. They will frame you as a danger to the harmony of the group, someone whose bluntness destroys unity, someone whose refusal to bend disrupts the delicate balance everyone else works to maintain. They will speak as if they are protecting others from you, when in truth, they are protecting themselves from the discomfort of your existence. This tactic is effective because morality carries weight in the eyes of the collective. An accusation of arrogance or insensitivity can spread faster than the truth of your intentions. And once such labels stick, even those who once admired you may step away, not because they believe the accusations, but because it is safer to be seen on the right side of the moral line. It is not that the crowd has decided you are wrong. It is that they have decided you are dangerous to stand beside. The envy that fuels these attacks is silent, unspoken, and often unconscious. Many of those who strike at you will genuinely believe they are acting out of moral duty. They will not admit, even to themselves, that your courage stings them. They will not face the reality that your refusal to compromise reminds them of their own compromises. And so they fight a war they do not even fully understand, all while convinced that they are the righteous ones. What makes this especially dangerous is that envy, when dressed as morality, does not tire quickly. Ordinary hostility can fade over time, but moral hostility can be sustained indefinitely because it feels justified. The attacker can revisit it again and again, convincing themselves that they are doing good while they are simply feeding on the quiet satisfaction of pulling someone else down. This makes their opposition persistent, patient, and willing to wait for the perfect moment to wound you most effectively. It is in this way that those who secretly resent you become your most persistent critics, not because they wish to correct you, but because they cannot bear to see you remain above them in courage, independence, or authenticity. They need to drag you into the same cage they inhabit, because only then will your existence stop reminding them of the freedom they never claimed for themselves. And when they finally succeed in masking their envy with the language of virtue, they will not see themselves as your enemy, but as the moral victor who has put an unruly soul in its place. There is a heavy price for refusing to wear the masks that others find so comfortable. The more real you are, the more you strip away the social illusions that most people rely on to feel safe, and the more illusions you strip away, the more you are pushed to the edges of the group. At first, this isolation feels subtle. A few hesitant glances, a few polite conversations that seem to end faster than before. But as time passes, the distance grows. Invitations arrive less often. Smiles become rarer. You are not excluded with open hostility, but with the quiet efficiency of people who prefer not to confront what unsettles them. This loneliness is not just about the absence of company. It is about the absence of understanding. When you are unfiltered, you see the world differently. You cannot pretend that flattery is sincerity. You cannot play along with the little performances people stage to make themselves look stronger, wiser, or kinder than they are. And because you cannot pretend, you cannot connect with people on the level they prefer. They want affirmation more than truth, comfort more than clarity. And when you offer the latter instead of the former, they withdraw. The human herd instinct is powerful. People gravitate toward those who make them feel secure, who tell them they are right, who reflect back the image they want to see. An unfiltered person does the opposite. They force people to confront the gap between who they are and who they pretend to be. This confrontation is rarely welcomed. It is easier to step away from the source of discomfort than to face it head on. So the unfiltered one is left standing alone, not because they have done wrong, but because they have refused to participate in the wrongs everyone else accepts. Over time, this isolation changes you. You stop expecting people to understand you fully. You become cautious about how much of yourself you reveal, not because you have grown dishonest, but because you have learned that truth must be rationed if it is to survive in a world addicted to lies. You begin to see relationships as fragile alliances, easily broken by a moment of unvarnished honesty. You watch as others form tight bonds built on mutual flattery, while yours are built on a dangerous sincerity that can crumble at the first sign of discomfort. This solitude has a paradox to it. On one hand, it is painful. Humans are not built to thrive in complete isolation. On the other hand, it is liberating. Without the constant pressure to please, you are free to think, speak, and act as you wish. The very thing that makes you unwanted in the crowd makes you sovereign over yourself. But sovereignty comes with a cost, and that cost is the warmth of belonging. You will often wonder if the trade was worth it. The truth is, most people will never admit that they prefer your absence. They will not say, "You make me uncomfortable because you are too honest." They will say, "We just don't connect," or "You're too intense," or "You overthink things." These words sound harmless, but they are the polite version of exile. They are the verbal curtain drawn to hide the real reason. You live without masks, and in doing so, you reveal that theirs are masks. The unfiltered path is one of self-imposed exile, but it is rarely walked willingly at first. Most who end up on it arrive there by accident. They speak a truth they think will be appreciated, only to watch it push people away. Then they try again, thinking the reaction will be different, but the pattern repeats. Eventually, they learn that their nature will always create a distance between themselves and the collective. And when they finally accept this, they stop seeking approval and begin walking alone, not because they desire solitude, but because they know it is the inevitable price of being unfiltered in a world that survives on pretense. In the end, being too real is less about courage and more about consequence. It is the silent rebellion against the unspoken laws that govern human interaction. To live without masks is to challenge the illusions that keep society comfortable, and such defiance will always be met with resistance. People do not hate you for your honesty. They hate you for what your honesty forces them to see. They will hide their discomfort behind polite smiles and vague criticisms, but the truth is clear. You disrupt the delicate fiction they rely on. This path offers no applause, no grand welcome, only the quiet satisfaction of knowing you have not traded your integrity for approval. It is a lonely victory, but a pure one, and purity has always been a rare and dangerous possession.